Hiya, focaccia bread. I made 2 loaves today. There's one there and one here. This one I added a little bit of tomato and olive to the top. Both of them are absolutely amazing, and I think you guys are gonna have a lot of fun making them, and you don't have to have a stand mixer, and you don't have to do any kneading. You guys are gonna love this recipe. Welcome back to the kitchen with Tabby. Let's get cooking. All right, guys, let's get this focaccia bread put together. Now, this is the first one I made, and I did this one with no olives or tomatoes because my husband doesn't like those. Dale's not crazy about, well, he likes tomatoes, but he doesn't like olives. So I made this one plain for him. So you guys are gonna make one with me now, and we are going to use some tomatoes and olives and rosemary on the top. What I love about this bread, let me just tell you before I get started, you don't have to have a stand mixer, you don't have to have a hand mixer, no mixer at all. All you need is a wooden spoon and some vigorous stirring. That's it. And so if you don't have a stand mixer, you can still make bread. No kneading at all with this one either. It's super easy to put together. So here we go. So I've got 2 cups of hot water. You want it to be between 110 and 115 degrees. I just used my little milk frother to warm mine up. So I've got 2 cups of warm water. We're going to pour that right into our bowl. And to that, I'm going to add 1 tablespoon of instant yeast. We're just going to sprinkle that yeast in there. And we're just going to give that a good stir with our spoon. Just give it a good little mix. Doesn't have to be fully incorporated or anything like that. You just want to kind of give it a good mix just to get that yeast mixed up in that warm water. Start getting it activated. Now, do you know what focaccia means? If you know what focaccia means, put it in the comments. I'll tell you what it means at the end of the video. That way, if you've just started watching it, you can put your comment in there before you hear the answer. I did not know what focaccia meant until Dale looked it up for me, because he was curious too. He asked me if I knew, and I said, no, I don't. So he looked it up and told me what it meant. And I thought it was kind of interesting. Now, obviously, this is an Italian bread. Focaccia is Italian bread. All right, so I've got that yeast mixed up in there pretty good. So now I'm going to add 3 tablespoons of olive oil. 1, 2, 3. And just so you know, off to the side here, I have another great big bowl. You can see I've got oil in the bottom of it. I have oiled the inside of this big bowl really well, because you want to have that oiled really well when we dump this dough into that. It needs to be oiled. So I did that before we got started. That way I don't have to worry about doing it. Let me turn this camera a little bit so you can see that bowl. It's probably better, huh? You can probably see that better. All right, now I'm going to add 2 teaspoons of salt. And now we're just going to give that a good mix. Just get all that incorporated in there. Just want to kind of dissolve that salt. So you want to give it a good stir before you start adding any flour. So you can see how that looks. So far so good, right? Pretty easy. All right, now in this bowl I have 3 3/4 cup bread flour. Not all purpose, not self-rising. You want bread flour. And I'll show you. I'm using the King Arthur bread flour. I really like this bread flour. All right, now that we have this stirred up, now we're gonna add about a cup, and I'm not gonna measure, I'm just gonna measure with my heart, but you're gonna add about a cup of the flour. And that looks about right. And we're just gonna give this a really good stir. This is where your vigorous stirring starts. You want to really give that a good stir. And there are some little lumps, and so those little lumps, I just kind of press those against the side of the bowl just to get some of those little lumps out, but you don't have to worry about getting all of them out. And that's just kind of getting it started with your flour. And then the rest of this flour now, I'm going to start adding it in about a 1/2 cup at a time. And we're just going to vigorously stir it in between each one. Just give it a really good stir, really vigorous stir. And what you're doing is you're just creating a really nice dough. You don't want it to be super smooth. It should be just a little bit sticky, but it should be pulling away from the sides of this bowl also by the time we get the rest of this flour in here. I kind of stir in the counterclockwise and then spin my bowl clockwise at the same time. That's how I do it. You can do it however you want, but that's just what I do. Okay, we've got just a little bit more to go here. I love it that you can do this with no mixer. You don't have to worry about having any kind of a special mixer for this, no stand mixer or anything. And I love it that you don't have to worry about kneading it. Just give that a good vigorous stir. Okay, a couple more here and then we'll be good. And it says to use a wooden spoon, so that's what I'm doing. You know me, I'm a rules follower, so I'm gonna do what it says to do. So you wanna make sure you've got a good wooden spoon. And I'll tell you, the first loaf that I made, I used a wooden spoon, but it was a longer handle, and I didn't like it as much. I couldn't control it as much, so I would recommend a short-handled wooden spoon. All right, that's looking good. Let's get the last bit in here. Gonna go ahead and bring my bowl over. And I'm going to take that olive oil and just go up the sides one more time, just make sure it's nice and oiled. So you can see the dough. See how it's a little sticky, but it is pulling away from the sides of the bowl. So now we're gonna take that and just plop it right out into this oiled bowl. And now we're going to cover it, and I'm going to put it back here on the back of my stove where it's nice and warm, and it's going to rise for about 45 minutes until it doubles in size. So you can see that's how it looks. Okay, let's let it rise. All right, so that's rising now. Oh, I gotta set my timer. Okay, now while that's rising, it says you can use a 9x13 pan or you can use a 10-inch skillet, which is what I used on the first loaf, and you can see how it turned out there. I really like that look. I like the round look of it. So that's what I'm gonna use again this time. And I have just oiled the bottom of the pan a little bit with some olive oil. Not too heavy, just a nice light coating on there. So that's ready whenever we're ready to put it in there. So we are going to let that rise for 45 minutes. While that's rising, I'm gonna go ahead and prep my tomatoes. I'm gonna slice these little cherry tomatoes in half. Probably only gonna use about 6 or 8 of them. You don't wanna cover the entire bread. You just want a nice little scattering of tomatoes on the top. And then I have some sliced olives, so we're gonna put some of those on the top. And I have some fresh rosemary, so I'm gonna get those little sprigs ready. So I'm gonna do that while the bread is rising. And when it has doubled in size, 45 minutes or so, I'll come back and show it to you, and we'll get it in the pan and get it in the oven. I'll be right back. All right, 45 minutes is up. Let's check it. Woo! Look at that. Guys, that looks so pretty. Oh, and it smells really good too. All right, got our pan, and like I said, we just lightly greased it or oiled it with some olive oil. And now I'm going to dump this out into the pan. The handle of my bowl is a little bit hot. Look at that. Oh, that is perfect. All right. Now we're just going to take it, and you're supposed to kind of spread it out to the edges, which it's already all the way out to the edges for me, and it is kind of a sticky dough. You can see how it's sticking a little bit. So if it's not spreading out to the edges of your pan, you want to just gently pull it out to the edges of your pan. Don't punch it down or anything. And then once you've done that, then you're just going to take your fingers and just kind of poke your fingers down in it. It's kind of fun. Just poking your fingers down in it a little bit. All right, let me rinse my hand off again. All right, now in this little bowl here, I have some olive oil, and so we're just gonna brush some olive oil all over the top of this bread. No rhyme or reason, just kind of putting a light coating of the olive oil on there. Okay. Now we are going to sprinkle some of the rosemary. And I'm not crushing it or anything, I just left it in the little leaves. Just kind of dotting that around on there. Then I have my oven preheated to 450 degrees. That's important, you gotta have that preheated. Now I'm gonna put my olives on. And I have my tomatoes sliced up, so I'm gonna put those in my little bowl here. Make it a little bit easier. So we're just gonna drop those tomatoes, and I just quartered the little cherry tomatoes. I'm gonna bring you over here a little closer. I think that looks pretty good. One more. Okay, into a 450 degree oven we go, and we're putting it on the middle rack. Now my first loaf only took 25 minutes. It says 25 to 30, so all the ovens are different, you know, so just check it about 25. You may not need 30 minutes, because I did not, but you might need 30 minutes. So I'm gonna put it in for 25 and we'll check it at that point. Here we go. All right, let's set our timer. There we go. When the timer goes off, I'll come back and we'll take it out and see how it looks. Hang tight. Timer went off. Let's get it out. Woo-wee. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? All right, now we're going to take it out of our pan and we're going to put it on our baking rack here. And we're going to let it cool for about 20 minutes. I had a hard time getting the first one out too. There we go. Ooh, it smells good, you guys. There we go. All right, now remember, it's a flatbread, so it's not gonna rise super fluffy like other traditional breads are gonna do. Let me bring it over here. See that? Isn't that pretty? All right, we're gonna let it cool a little bit, and I have already made, a little dipping oil, olive oil with some herbs and salt and pepper. Nothing fancy, a little Parmesan cheese, but we've got that ready. So as soon as that cools off just a little bit, we'll cut a piece and taste it. So I'll be right back. Let's give this focaccia bread a try. I'm so excited. The other loaf actually rose a little bit more. I don't know why, because I did them both exactly the same way. So that just goes to show you. You just never know. But they both look amazing, and I already tasted the other one and it's delicious. But I'm excited to taste this one with the tomatoes and the olives. I think that's gonna add a really good flavor. So I told you I would let you know in the beginning of the video, focaccia, if you guys know what that meant, hopefully you've already commented before I give you this spoiler. Focaccia actually comes, and I printed it out so I wouldn't mess it up. It comes from the Roman panis focaccius, which means hearth bread. And they used to bake it in the coals, in the fires in the Roman times. So it says it's a recipe that back then consisted of rough flour, which is basically bread flour, olive oil, water, and a very small quantity of yeast and salt. That's exactly what we put in ours. And it says it was probably quite plain, but it was used to dip into herbs and salty soups and things like that. So there's your little history lesson for the day. So in true tradition, I'm gonna tear this apart. I'm not gonna cut it. We're just gonna tear a little piece off. Let's see. It all looks really pretty, so I don't think it matters where we tear from. So I'm just gonna tear a little piece here. Ooh, I got 2 olives. Let me show you how it looks. Isn't that beautiful? Isn't that pretty? All right, so let's dip it. I've got my dipping oil here. I lost an olive, but I'll get it. All right, let's try it. Thank you, Lord, for this food. Amen. I'm gonna get that olive. Oh my goodness, you guys. That is delicious. I took a big bite. I'm gonna show you. That's how it looks on the inside. Very moist and fluffy. It looks really good. And it tastes really good. That's the most important part. I sure hope you guys give it a try. And like I said, the best thing about it is no kneading, and you don't have to have a stand mixer or anything. just a good wooden spoon and some little bit of arm strength, you can make it too. All right, guys, that's it for today's video. I really hope you enjoyed it. Hopefully you didn't get too distracted by the puffy eyes. They've gone down quite a bit. I took some prednisone today, so I'm still itching. But it is getting much better. I have on long sleeves to try to keep me from itching. But it's getting much better. So, and I appreciate all of your prayers. You guys are precious. It's really meant the world to me, and I have felt every single one. Really, really precious. All right, guys, remember, get yourself in the kitchen, make something fun, make a memory, bring your kids in, get that next generation involved, getting them in the kitchen and getting them excited about cooking. That's really important. Guys, I love you so much. God loves you even more than I do. Please don't forget that He is the unseen guest at every dinner table and the silent listener at every conversation. So just make sure those words coming out of your mouth are pure and sweet like honey. You're lifting each other up, loving on each other, and being kind, because that's what we're called to do. Don't forget also that you're going to find this recipe on my website, inthekitchenwithtabbi.com. If you're watching on Facebook, the link to the recipe will be in the comments right underneath this post, and the link to the recipe on YouTube, if you're watching on YouTube, that will be in the full description. So click on the more right underneath this video and the full description will open up and you'll see the link to the recipe there. That's it, guys. I will see you in the next video. Bye.